The Bride of Frankenstein was released in 1935 and was directed by James Whale and saw the return of the actors for both Frankenstein and the monster, Colin Clive, and of course, Boris Karloff. This movie is a sequel to the 1931 Frankenstein film, and the story is set almost immediately after the events of the first film. But instead of just diving right into the story where we last left off, we get kind of a treat with the prologue where we instead are taken to a live adaptation of the origin of the Frankenstein story, where it's a dark and stormy night, and Lord Byron and Percy B. Shelley and the author of Frankenstein herself, Mary Wollstonecraft, eventually Mary Shelley, played by Elsa Lanchester, are just sitting by the fireplace, and Mary begins to conclude her tale in pure campfire story fashion. Now, the rest of the story is inspired by the Frankenstein novel, but of course it does take its own liberties to tie into the events of the film's narrative. Both Dr. Frankenstein and the monster survive the aftermath of the burning windmill, and Henry Frankenstein is eventually approached by another scientist named Dr. Pretorius to request his help in building another creature. As for the monster, he eventually seeks refuge with a blind hermit who teaches him how to speak and is the only one to take the monster as a friend. Now, eventually both the monster and Pretorius kidnap Henry's new bride, Elizabeth, to convince him to create a mate for the monster, which, of course, he reluctantly agrees. Dr. Frankenstein succeeds in creating a mate, and hey look, there's Elsa Lanchester again. But let's just say things don't end quite well. The Bride of Frankenstein is the first sequel in the Universal Monsters film series, and I appreciate how, even though it's a sequel, it's not telling a different story with just the same characters. It's concluding one big story. Kind of like how today, how they would make a two-part movie based off one book, as seen from like the Harry Potter film series or Hunger Games. I really enjoyed the actors' performances, even more so in this film than its predecessor. Colin Clive's performance as Baron Henry Frankenstein was great as always. He spent most of the film sitting or lying down because he was struggling with alcoholism during the filming of this movie, but I think it added to his character appearing weak and fatigued from the events of both movies. Boris Karloff returns as the monster, and his transition as a mindless brute to a more sympathetic creature was done great. It really breaks your heart whenever you finally think he made a friend, only for that to be ripped away from him. It's really sad, not just for the monster, but for the blind hermit as well, because he states that he prayed for a friend for a very long time, and the monster was the only friend that he had ever had. Friendship, to me, guys, is a very big deal, so to see that was heartbreaking. Now, the film goes into better detail, emphasizing how Frankenstein reanimating the monster was tragic, especially with how the creature was received. It didn't just take a toll on Frankenstein, but it also took a very emotional toll on the monster, and Karloff portrayed that very well. And it was intriguing to see that the monster actually preferred death over being brought back to life. Now, this movie also stars Ernest Thesiger. I probably butchered that name, I apologize, but he plays Dr. Pretorius, a scientist who has created life in his own way, I should say, but he needs Dr. Frankenstein's help in creating another experiment. And I enjoyed his character. I thought he did a good job at playing a very seemingly respectable scientist, but that's also conniving at the same time. It's almost like he's playing both the angel and the devil on your shoulder. I get a chuckle every time he mentions that gin is one of his weaknesses, only to Frankenstein, but then goes on to say cigars are his only weakness to the monster. I know others may not think much of that, but I thought it was pretty amusing. Elsa Lanchester as the bride did very well. I'll be honest, for the longest time I didn't even know that she played both the bride and Mary Shelley at the beginning. It is unfortunate, though, that she didn't get much screen time. She was basically brought to life. She resented the monster and then was just blown to bits. While that was a bummer, she devoted good energy to the role and made for a very memorable ending. As far as negatives, though, I don't really have a lot, except for the scene where Dr. Pretorius reveals the tiny little figures that he created. I don't know. Personally, that scene has never really sat well with me, mostly because I did find it a little hard to believe that he would need Frankenstein's help creating life if he was able to create that. But if I'm being honest, I'm kind of glad that they kept Dr. Pretorius in check, in a manner of speaking. I always appreciate for how Frankenstein and his reputation was in the cinematic universe for being a scientist that was known for achieving scientific greatness that others considered impossible, and his legacy would only be carried out by his descendants. But other than that scene, I don't have any issues. I've heard from several people that have claimed that this is one of the best films in the Universal Monster film series. I will agree to that. It's very well made, the acting was very well done, and the cinematography was on par with the first movie, if not better. Now, is it my personal favorite? No, but don't worry. That review is coming up next with The Wolfman. But guys, thanks so much for checking out this review. I hope that you enjoyed it, and be sure to comment down below your thoughts on The Bride of Frankenstein. And by the way, we also have another Bride of Frankenstein movie coming out pretty soon, next month I believe, that stars Christian Bale and was directed by Maggie Gyllenhaal. That's called The Bride. Thanks so much again, guys. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to hit that like button and consider subscribing if you're enjoying my content, and I'll see you guys next time.